What is up, my fellow Chiebits? Happy 4th of July to all of you Chiebits currently watching this video. I know not all of you celebrate 4th of July, but I still just want to say happy 4th of July, and also I wish all of you a very wonderful day. So today, I'm here to bring all of you my anime first impressions of Taboo Tattoo. Now, this is a series that I actually was going to skip over. No joke, I was actually going to skip over this series, but many of you Chiebits, when I did what I will watch for the Summer of Anime 2016, a lot of you said, Chibi, you need to give this series a shot. See if you like it. You need to do a first impressions and see if you want to continue watching the series. A lot of you Chiebits asked that. Many of you did in the comments, and I heard you, so here I am giving you all my first impressions of Taboo Tattoo. Okay, so visually speaking, the visuals of this series is definitely probably the best so far I have seen from Summer of Anime 2016, if I'm not counting the Tell series that is being animated by Studio Photable, because honestly, it's kind of unfair to compare any series to Studio Photable. They put so much animation art and, budget and all this production value into their series. It's just kind of insane to kind of compare their series with something like, normal anime series we see from every season. So, if Tells wasn't here, let's just say if a Photable series did not come out this season, I would have to say at this time that Taboo Tattoo has probably the best visuals I have seen from Summer of Anime 2016, because some of the scenes I saw throughout this episode looked absolutely brilliant, especially that fighting scene towards the first half of the episode, when you see our MC going up against Izzy and fighting her. The animation in that scene was just so fucking mind-blowing, because I was like, holy shit, it looks so good, because, I mean, the art style was visually pleasing. I love the way the art style was. It was completely different from the normal art style we get from every other anime series. It's just, it had this different vibe to it. It reminded me a lot of JC Staff's previous work, Prison School. So if any of you were wondering, I believe that JC Staff was using something very similar to how they used in Prison School, because there was a lot of similarities when it came to the character design, to the way the shading was, to the way the art just looked in general, and the backgrounds. It reminded me a lot of Prison School. So I'm willing to bet JC Staff most likely decided to use that choice of art style for this series, Taboo Tattoo. Oh yeah, and here's something else that's even more interesting than that. Not just that the art style is very similar to Prison School, but also Achievement pointed out on Twitter and told me that the sound director of this series is the same sound director that is the one that did it for Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works. So if you are familiar at all with Fate, if you're familiar with the animation, how Ufotable poured so much production value into that series, you know how it was. You could say whatever you will about the plot, to the way it was done, and the anime speaking and all that, but I'm willing to bet majority of you cannot deny when it came to the sound directing of Fate, it was absolutely amazing. It completely destroyed a lot of things you see from that anime from the seasons it aired, and the sound was just something so stunning. And you always constantly heard these little sound effects throughout the entirety of Fate Stay Night, like for instance opening of doors to moving, shifting of characters and stuff. You just heard these little key sound effects that really added more life and immersion to the series. And so the same sound director that was actually working on Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works is the same sound director that is working on Taboo Tattoo. So here's the thing. We have JC Staff that is using the art style and animation style that we saw from Prison School, and we have the sound director from Ufotable that was working on Fate working on this series. So those two right there just already make a very interesting foundation for this anime, because there was a lot of life to the music and sound effects in this first episode, and I was really loving how the music or the sound effects were just adding this life to the series, especially to the fighting scene. I love the way the fighting scene sound effects were. I don't usually talk about that a lot, but it's just something that really stood out to me when Achievement pointed out, because I was like, no wonder it reminded me so much of Fate, or why the sound effects were just so immersive. Like how I could just immerse myself amongst this entire episode and be like, man, this is pretty good. And I was truly entertained with this episode, honestly. The animation art with the music made a very good episode, but I gotta talk about the plot. I gotta talk about the plot, I gotta talk about the premise, I gotta talk about all that, because I can't honestly, stop at first impressions at just the art, animation, and sound effects. So, the plot. To be blunt, the plot is nothing special. It is nothing special whatsoever. It is something I have seen time and time again. It's where a main male character, he is not necessarily weak, but he's a little bit strong, but he's not the strongest ever, and one day he encounters a problem or an issue, and he's gifted like some form of ability, a power, to where he could, you know, defeat bad guys. Now, that's kind of shortening the summary of the series a little bit, but mainly the main character has been gifted some form of special power to where he can combat and help out our main cast. And it's something we've seen time and time again from other series. It's very similar. I mean, it's nothing spectacular and, you know, new when it comes to the plot point of this, you know, series. But I will say, however, that is where we need to kind of raise our expectations a little bit, because it doesn't matter how the foundation is. It really matters about where the direction goes with the series. See, there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of potential for this series to become absolutely amazing. Like, let's look at, you know, ReZero. ReZero, I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't watched the series, but ReZero, in a way, it kind of started off a little bit simplistic. It wasn't nothing 10 out of 10. It was nothing that would just broke the foundation of everything and change the game, but it was something interesting. It was something that tried to, you know, take its own path, and it has. It's shown in recent episodes, it's tried to take its own path with the story and be completely different from what you normally see from those type of, you know, series. So, ReZero tried to do something different, even though it started off in a very similar nature as from other anime series or manga series or light novel series you would see from time to time. So, I'm willing to bet that Taboo Tattoo, since it has such a big fan base and so many people support this series, I'm willing to bet that the plot is probably going to steer off into something very interesting and not become something that's just bland or generic, because the start, I don't think, is probably the full picture of what we're probably going to get from the series, because the start off is just the foundation block, but it can go in any different path or branch and change into something absolutely amazing. So if the visuals and the art and also the sound effects speak for anything, it seems like JC staff is wanting to pour in a lot of work and production value into this series, so that must be for a reason. And it doesn't seem like this series is going to be one of those series that just for ecchi harems and type of stuff for fan service, so it's definitely not something like that, why it has good animation and art. So there's something else going on here. It's definitely a series that most likely is going to become amazing, depending on where it's going to go, and I am fully excited to see where Taboo Tattoo goes from this point onward. Now, I'll give it, you know, the 3-episode rule. I'll see how it goes, unless episode 2 is just straight up bad, then, yeah, I'll probably drop on episode 2, but usually I'll give it the 3-episode rule. I'll see how it goes. I'll see if I like it. If I like it, I'll continue watching it. I'll continue making videos on it, and there you go. So, yeah, a good first episode. It was a good episode. Not the best, not the 10 out of 10 best because, you know, the plot and all that and the premise, but it could become something amazing. It was still a good episode, a first episode, definitely. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.